This week in game news, Shinzo Abe, Prime Minister of Japan, made the announcement that the 2020 Olympics would be held in Japan whilst cosplaying as Mario, and we can't show you that because, frankly, we don't feel like fighting with NBC. PlayStation Now is coming to PC, PAX West is coming up next week, Mothership Entertainment announced Aven Colony, a settlement game set on an alien planet, we finally have an idea of when Owlboy is coming out, and Pokemon Go has seen quite the dip in its player base. All this and more on this week's episode. This is the Blackman and Robin Game News Update.
The land that you roam in times gone and far, the land that you love and all that you are.
So, after years of development, Owlboy is finally coming out fall of 2016. I was but a boy when I first caught wind of this project. The developers have been working on Owlboy for nearly 10 years. They're gonna give Final Fantasy XV a run for their money. Now, the game is a platformer with incredibly beautiful pixel art and an interesting premise. You play as Otis, who's having a hard time living as an owl, being mute and everything. What's more, things start going south when sky pirates suddenly show up. Now, if 9 years of development sounds weird for this sort of game, a 2D platformer, keep in mind that it's been developed by a really tiny team. They've put their hearts and souls into it, and if you're going to PAX West, you can meet them and ask questions about their game during their panel on September 5th at 2 p.m. in the Sasquatch Theater. Owlboy will be available for Windows. Regarding PlayStation Now, Sony's game streaming service is coming to Windows. For monthly fee, you can stream PlayStation 3 games to your PC. Now, the service already exists for PlayStation 4. It's the closest thing that the console has to backwards compatibility with the PS3. Now, if you have a fast enough connection, you'll be able to use the service on your PC. Additionally, Sony announced that the DualShock 4 USB wireless adapter, which will allow you to connect a PS4 controller to your PC, is also coming out. Now, this is useful if you don't have Bluetooth on your computer and you want to use your PS4 controller wirelessly. Otherwise, it's useless because it doesn't support the use of more than one controller simultaneously. Sony says that a Mac version of the service is being considered, but we have no solid confirmation of it being developed. In Pokemon Go news, this week the game received an update that brought an IV evaluation system to the game. In case you're unfamiliar with them, IVs, or individual values, are hidden statistics on a Pokemon that determine just how strong that Pokemon can turn out to be after leveling. A Pokemon that scores a 15 on all three stats, attack, defense, and stamina, will be far stronger than a Pokemon of the same species that scores anything lower than that. Now, the appraisal system is simple. You visit your Pokemon in your collection, tap them, request an appraisal, and boom, that's it. Now your gym leader will tell you if the creature in your collection is worth anything. The players have uncovered that the appraisal in Pokemon Go has put Pokemon into 4 categories. IV 80 to 100, the best, 67 to 79, strong, 51 to 66, which is alright, and 0 to 50, which is pathetic. The appraisal has 3 stages. The first tells you what tier its IV falls into, while the next tells you its strongest stat. The third stage actually gives you an idea of where its stats are. So if your team leader says that its stats are the best, exciting, or exceed calculations, it means that at least one of these stats is 15 or perfect. If during Phase 2 you're told that your Pokemon's best stat is matched by its other stats, and then told that your Pokemon stats are perfect, congratulations! You have a Pokemon with 100% IV. There was some disappointing but inevitable Pokemon Go news this week, and it's that the game has lost a ton of players. According to Axiom Capital Management, not only have the daily players of the game dropped off dramatically, by 15 million users in fact, but player engagement is also dropping as people are spending less time with the app. Speaking as a player, I totally saw this coming. There's not enough to do in the game. The combat is weak, catching Pokemon turns into a Sisyphean chore as you level up, and chasing after Pokemon is unnecessarily hard due to the lack of a proper in-game tracking system. The game's just not as good as it could be. Indeed, it's really not finished. I feel sorry for Niantic. They really should have slapped a beta label on the game when they released it to the public. It is interesting to note the cultural relevance that Nintendo has taken on this year, seemingly out of nowhere. Between Pokemon Go and Japan's Prime Minister cosplaying as Mario to announce the Olympics in Tokyo, the world really loves Nintendo. Here's hoping the love continues when Nintendo launches their NX. In an interview with A-List Daily, Reggie Fils-Aimé says that Nintendo has to do a better job communicating the positioning for the product when they launch the NX. In case you didn't realize it, Nintendo launched the Wii U, their follow-up console to the Wii, a few years back, and it really didn't do that well at all. Speaking as a Wii U owner, it's really unfortunate what's been going on with that console. It is a fantastic piece of machinery. Okay, it's a decent piece of machinery, nothing earth-shattering, but it has some really great games. I mean, Splatoon, that shook up the whole shooter genre. Unfortunately, a few good games aren't enough to save your platform if nobody knows about it. So, will Nintendo save themselves? Find out next week on... Find out next year when the Nintendo NX is launched. In game releases this week, Faeria went free-to-play on Steam. If you've watched this show regularly, you'll know that I'm a huge fan of Scrolls, which is Mojang's trading card game that kinda fell by the wayside. It was supposed to be shut down earlier in the summer, but it's still running somehow, and I'm still playing, even though the community's a lot smaller these days. Anyway, a lot of the Scrolls players are playing either Faeria or Duelist these days. Now that the former is currently free on Steam, I predict a big bump in the player base. Now, regarding the game itself, I got to play some Faeria this week, and I'm really liking it. It's like Scrolls in some ways, but way different in others. For starters, while it is a board and card game, you have to build the board. At the start of each game, you're presented with a blank board full of empty spaces. What you have to do is pick tiles that represent different environments to fill the board. Certain creatures can only be spawned on certain environments. What's more, you can only summon your units to tiles that you've placed yourself, so place wisely. Keep in mind, however, you can generally move these units anywhere that you want. Your goal is to reach your opponent at the far side of the arena with your units in order to attack. I'm not very good at the game quite yet since I'm still a beginner, but I did catch on pretty quickly to the general idea of the game. Now, stylistically, Faeria is a little reminiscent of Skyward Collapse. If you're looking for a new strategy game, you absolutely must check out Faeria. Its board-building mechanic is really unique, and the game's surprisingly well-balanced considering how it's still in a pretty early stage of development. Faeria is currently available for Mac and Windows. Not to be outdone, Duelist received a Steam release this week. Now this game is also free to play, and surprise, it's a card and board game. It's really fast-paced and well worth checking out if you're looking for something fun and new in the genre. I admit, it's been a while since I've played Duelist, but I do remember the game being pretty enjoyable and calling for some really careful strategy. Much like in Faeria, you're dropping down units on the board in order to attack your enemy. Unlike Faeria, however, you don't have to build the board. That said, the environment of the board does make a pretty big difference to whatever strategy it is that you've cooked up. Duelist is currently available for Mac and Windows. Absolute Drift Zen Edition was released on the PlayStation 4 this week. It's a rather unusual sort of game. Now you have a car, but your goal isn't to race, rather it's to drift. You must slide around sideways in order to complete challenges. Now I played some of the game's PC version, which was released previously, but this week was updated with the content from the PS4 version. Personally, I really like the game. It's kind of weird, but also really chill. If you're looking for a relaxing game with gorgeous, minimalistic style, check out Absolute Drift. Besides being available on the PS4, it's also out on Steam for Mac, Windows, and Linux.
I don't even know why I'm recording this. Most are gone. There's just a few left here now. We're locking down as much as possible here.
First-person adventure game Abduction hit Steam this week after a bit of a delay. The game was a big hit on Kickstarter, and for good reason. It's been designed by the creators of Myst, which is the grandpappy of first-person adventure puzzlers. Unfortunately for the developers, they had a publisher at some point in time, but the publisher pulled out suddenly, leaving them high and dry, throwing a whole wrench into their production pipeline. Fortunately, however, the game still got made, and apparently it's quite good. Thus far, Abduction has gotten positive reception on Steam. From what I've been hearing, the puzzles are really challenging, way harder than those of The Witness. They also seem to have a greater variety as well, so if you're into good hard puzzle games and strange, trippy science fiction, check out Abduction. Something about the game's style reminds me of F1, another fantastic first-person adventure that you should definitely check out if you get the chance. That one's not quite so hard. Was this the week for challenging games? Maybe it was the week for minimalistic games. N++ was released on Steam this week, and it's super cool and combines both of those elements. Heads up for the photosensitive, there are flashing lights and colors in the upcoming trailer. You might want to look away until we start talking about Master of Orion. If you're listening to the podcast version of the show, you probably don't have to close your eyes. Anyway, the N series of platformers is this really cool, minimalistically styled bunch of games with a great aesthetic, hard gameplay, and loads of levels. N++ features a level creator, so you can try your hand at making levels on your own. The game also boasts local co-op if you'd like to play with friends. N++ is currently available for Windows, and has previously been released on PlayStation 4. If you really need a strategy fix this week, a new Master of Orion left early access on Steam. Now, the Master of Orion series started way back in the mid-90s, and then kind of vanished for a while. Master of Orion 3 was critically panned. That said, the series did not die altogether. Indeed, it looks like the series has come back in style. Master of Orion 4, which is inexplicably just titled Master of Orion, has been picking up great scores from the critics, and thus far has gotten pretty good response from fans, though I have heard that the game features some changes that make it simpler than its predecessors. So while it's not a bad game, it is less complex. That said, it's well worth checking out if you're into 4X games. Master of Orion is currently available on Mac, Windows, and Linux.
Or without.
And now for a brief word from our sponsor.
Wow, somebody finally did it. And fishermen around the world say this lure will change fishing forever.
You tie a line to it, you throw it in the water, you pull it, and it catches fish.
It's almost like they have to eat it.
That doesn't look like a fake bait. The Mighty Bite is... that's something.
Imagine a lure that will make fish bite hard, hold on, and refuse to let go until you hook them and reel them in. Say hello to Mighty Bite. And nothing catches a fish's attention better than a wounded bait fish. And that's exactly how Mighty Bite looks, sounds, smells, tastes, and feels. That's why fish cats say no to Mighty Bite. It's better than live bait. And get the Mighty Bite fishing system now.
Hey, Mighty Bite Hand 5. Woo!
Oh yeah.
In today's special TV-only offer, you get the original 5-cents fishing lure system, the Mighty Bite. You get 8 pre-rigged, ready-to-fish Mighty Bite lures in proven multiple sizes, shapes, and natural colors. So you're locked and loaded to catch everything from panfish to giant bass to trophy-sized saltwater game fish.
In crowdfunding projects this week, the Kickstarter for the OTON X went live at long last. This is a project that I've had my eye on for a while. Essentially, it's a Linux box that features a game generator of sorts. It's being billed as an autonomous console. Essentially, it makes games. To be honest, that claim seems a little bit out there. Like, I love the idea of a machine that generates games, but from what has been shown thus far, it seems to just procedurally generate platformer levels. I mean, that's cool in itself, but there are tons of game titles that feature procedural generation. From the looks of things, the OTON won't be making anything truly new. Something like Crypta the Necrodancer or Kerbal Space Program couldn't just be randomly generated. Those games had to be carefully designed. So this generator making new game levels with preset mechanics and stuff, well, that's neat, but it's not necessarily groundbreaking. I also kinda take issue with the Kickstarter campaign itself. I mean, for starters, the Kickstarter trailer features some kinda outdated promises. Like, for instance, you won't have to wait in line for new games. Really? I can't remember the last time I waited in line for a video game, and with the dawn of digital distribution, you don't really have to go to a store to pick up a game. I mean, sure, you might go to a midnight release of a game, but waiting in line is really part of the experience, for that lame as it is. That said, today I'm not here to talk about consumer culture, I'm here to talk about this Kickstarter. And goodness gracious, the game's Kickstarter page is a bit of a mess. However, what's kinda worrisome is this here chart. Offering free, unlimited games might be technically true for the OTON X, but claiming that it offers privacy when traditional consoles don't? What does that mean? There's literally nothing else about privacy on the device's Kickstarter page. Is this thing protected with 2048-bit RSA? The world will never know. It mentions that you can resell OTON games, but there's no further information about that on the Kickstarter page. Unlimited storage? So does this thing somehow violate the laws of the known universe? The page clearly says under the device's specifications that the OTON X features a 128GB SSD. That's not infinite. That's about 80 episodes of this show in stunning 1920 by 1080 resolution. I think the worst part of this chart, however, is that it claims that the OTON X costs $20 less than your $299 traditional console. The cheapest tier of the OTON in the Kickstarter campaign is $300. It gets better, however. Scroll down to the text specs section of the page, and you'll read, "The OTON X is the best platform to create unlimited games at a projected donation price, $399.
To quickly get OTON in your hands within the next few months. Your game is ready.
So this thing is jumping around in price, from $280 to $300 to $400. What is it? While I love the idea of a machine that specializes in generating levels in all sorts of games, unless I see the OTON actually put together something more than what appear to be basic platformer levels, I'm not sold on the notion of the OTON as what it's being advertised as. I wish that the Kickstarter trailer showed less low frame rate gameplay and jostling couples, and more of the game's generation actually at work. All said, however, the device itself seems to be worth picking up for the hardware alone. It's a decently spec'd Linux box with what appears to be a really nice controller, so if you're in the market for that sort of thing, a console for your Linux-compatible Steam games, you should check this out. The OTON X at the time of production has raised $3,635 of its $25,000 goal. Now, if you're into video games, there's a good chance that you're into video game music. Personally, I'm a man fond of metal, and I know that beautiful things happen when video game music meets overdriven guitars and big hair. That's what the kids are into with their rock and roll, right? Big hair? Anyway, what I'm saying is that you should check out the Kickstarter project for Shadow and Steel, the upcoming album from video game band Master Sword. They're doing metal renditions of music from the Legend of Zelda series. If you're wondering about their style, you can check out some of their music on YouTube. They're a little reminiscent of Sonata Arctica, if you know that genre of metal. As for actual games on Kickstarter, this week, Astro Boy Edge of Time caught our attention. The game is an online card game set in the Astro Boy universe. I'm a bit of an anime geek myself, though I don't go quite so far back as Astro Boy. I'm really only familiar with a recent film adaptation with Nicolas Cage. That said, this card game looks pretty cool. It features both a single-player campaign as well as online multiplayer, and it's set to be released 2017 for Mac, Windows, and Linux, as well as iOS and Android. If you'd like to try out Astro Boy Edge of Time for yourself, there's a demo available to download from the game's Kickstarter page. This week, a trailer was released for Outward, an upcoming RPG from 9 Dots. It's meant to be a more realistic take on a fantasy RPG. You're not a special chosen one, you're just an ordinary person in an extraordinary world. The game's currently in development for PC and consoles and features both split-screen and online co-op. There's something about it that reminds me a little of the Elder Scrolls series, but with a different sort of character. If you're at PAX West next week, be sure to check it out at booth number 7303. I don't play a whole lot of city-building games. While I'm fond of city skylines, it's not a genre that I'm big on. That said, the trailer for Avon Colony has me pretty excited. It's a city-building game set on an alien planet. If you'd like to try it out when it goes into beta, you can sign up for that at avoncolony.com. Well, that's it for this week's game news. For all the latest game news, reviews, previews, and interviews, be sure to follow at Blackman and Robin on Twitter and Instagram. Follow me at Jordan_Cameron for my own views.